Donna Barbier. I am doing this video for Belle's Cookie Connection e-class. It is all about cutting the dough and getting the dough baked. Because of the time, I will not be able to show you, straight from how I do into the oven and get them baked and then out of the oven, things like that. But I will walk you step by step of the process, okay? But we are gonna do some cutting. I'm gonna go over with you my setup really quickly. So I have a mat. This is a silicone mat that I ordered from Amazon, and it's a pie cutter's mat, but it does really well with rolling out cookies or bread or whatever it is that you roll out. But it does have the pie chart on here. So really people use this to cut pies with, but I use it to cut cookies. And I think most of all the mats that you get probably have this kind of scale, so don't think that you can't use it, that it's not made to roll cookies out on. You can definitely do that. My other tool that I use is the silicone rolling pin, and I ordered this off of Amazon. Most of everything that you're gonna, besides my cookie cutters, you're gonna see I got from Amazon. But this is one that you can unscrew the end and put the guides on. This is how I keep my cookies, a 1/4 inch. I always use a 1/4 inch. One tip to remember is that the bigger the cookie, the thicker the cookie, the more dough that you use. And I learned that lesson the hard way when I was trying to plan out cookies for a big event. And I thought I had enough dough, but because I had chosen a 5-inch cookie cutter and I wanted to make them as thick as possible, I used the thickest setting, and I ran out of dough. So you want to make sure, and so I just kind of started streamlining my cookies. My dough is always a 1/4 inch, and all of my cookies that I do are between 3.5 to 4.5 inches. 4 inches probably is about my normal. The bigger the cookie, the more icing you have to use to decorate, so just kind of keep that in mind. But I do have larger cookie cutters that I have used on special requests, but those I charge more for because of the fact that they're huge. They're like a big, piece of cookie, a big, huge cookie for the 5-inch and up. And then the next thing that I always set out when I'm doing my cookies is my pans. Now, this is a 1/2 sheet pan with a 1/2 sheet silicone mat. This is the mat that I use. Come in a set of 2 off of Amazon. And I use the baking mats because I get a better, evenly baked cookie with it. It allows for my bottoms not to brown too much, because I don't like for my bottoms to brown. A lot of people think that if their bottoms are not brown, their cookies are not done. That is not true. I'm going to tell you a couple of tips when baking right now. One is, do not overload your pan. If you put too many cookies on the pan, then you're not going to have enough heat flow throughout the pan to get your cookies to bake evenly, okay? So you want to make sure that I normally only put 6 to a pan, depending on the size. If I have a small cookie like these little football cookies right here, I could do 8. I could do 4 up top and 4 at the bottom. But I always make sure I have them spaced evenly apart and that there's enough room for things to flow. I know that the idea and the thought process that we all have is the more cookies we can get on the pan, the quicker we can get done and get finished. And yes, while I had that same thought process in the beginnings of my baking career, it just didn't work well. And so you want to make sure that you do have enough room for the heat to come through and bake your cookies evenly, because if you don't, you're going to have some undone cookies, and then when you're trying to get those done, then some overbaked cookies. Make sense? Also, too, another tip is when you're baking cookies, you want to make sure that when you're putting them on the pan, you want to put kind of the same size cookie on your cookie sheet when you're baking these, because I need 4 of these and 4 of these. Well, I won't be able to bake 8 of these on the pan, but I could put but at the end I could put a couple of these together, and it's okay because it's about the same size. Now, I would not bake this cookie cutter with this football, because it's just not the same size. Matter of fact, you would get, trying to get this done, you would get golden, almost crusted, really burnt edges on these points here, because like say you're baking a unicorn, and the unicorn horn would probably get very brown and very crunchy, and you just don't want that throughout your cookie. So you want to make sure that you bake about the same size cookie on the cookie sheets, okay? Always keep your sizes together. Even if you have 2 left over, keep your sizes together. So that's about it. The other thing that I have on my table is a bowl of flour, because you're gonna need that whenever you are rolling out your dough. Now, my dough I took out the freezer a little while ago, probably about 10 minutes before I started this video. And I can press on it, and which means that it's softened up enough for me to start working with it. So we're gonna get started, and I'm going to show you how I cut the dough. All right, so I always start with a cup of flour right in the center. And I'm gonna get some of these ballerina cookies cut. Oh, I was gonna show you too, you can always flip a cookie cutter. I'm using this truck cookie. This is a truck with a Christmas tree on it, but the way that this setup is for this set, this is a birthday set, is I'm gonna use the truck part, but I'm gonna take the straight edge of this cookie cutter and I'm gonna cut that tree off, because all I want is the truck. This is a birthday set for my cousin, and so he's gonna have an old truck. He's gonna have a sign, a speed limit sign that says 50 on it, and then I hope to do a mountain scene on the back of this happy birthday. So in the back, I hope that I can use some stencils that I have and make a pretty mountain scene, and maybe a road at the bottom. So kind of the idea of the 50 birthday. This is a sports one. I'm doing a baseball glove, and then a football jersey and a football. And then the ballerina set, I'm doing the little ballerina dress with the ballerina shoes, and then a plaque that's gonna have a couple of ballerina stencils on it. So that is the sets that I'm cutting for today. So now I want to spread out my flour. And then I take a rolling pin and I always flour it. And you will have to flour your roller pin throughout the process, okay? Move some of this up out of the way. I'm going to put the pan that I'm going to use right next to me so it's an easy transfer. And what I do is I break off a chunk. I don't try to roll out my whole pat of dough. If you watch my other video, you know why it's called pat of dough. But I just open up the package. And this is another reason why I love the press and seal, is because it's easy to open up and close. And then I just break off a chunk, and then I close it back up and I set it to the side. Now, to start with your dough, if you are using my cookie recipe, that cookie recipe took me a little while to develop because I wanted a soft cookie. But I noticed as I was rolling out my cookie, and the more flour that you put into it as you're rolling, the more times that you're having to pick your dough up and re-pat it and ball it out to where you can roll it out again. There was more flour being added, which would dry out the cookie. So my recipe, just so you know, has been adjusted to where I kind of calculated the flour that you use here to add in, because you are constantly adding flour in as you're rolling dough out. So to keep my cookie soft and to keep it not to be dry, with all the flour that you add in every time, I keep rolling and rolling and rolling. It works. So I had to keep adjusting. That's why there's only 4 cups of flour in my batch, because I calculated for us adding flour in as we're rolling the dough out. Make sense? So I just kind of, I break it apart, and then I kind of pat it together and I ball it out, and then I press down a little bit to get it started. And you want to make sure that your flour is spread out well. And I even add a little flour on top. That helps with the rolling. Now when you are working with frozen dough, it is going to be a little, you know, muscle building. So you want to just make sure that you roll out, pressing down firmly, and you are going to use your muscles to do it so. Now, when you're rolling dough out, you want to make sure that you come from all sides. Don't just go up and down. Don't go just one way, because if you've got a shape like that truck, then you're not going to get very many cookies cut out on that roll as you would get if you spread the dough out to where it makes more of a round shape. A more rounded rollout. And the way that you check to see if the dough is all rolled out well is you want to see. You see how that roller how it stopped? So that means that there's still, it's not flat enough. These guides are going to keep it at 1/4 inch. And you can also, if you have a regular rolling pin, you can order the rubber band guides that they make for rolling pins, like the wooden roller pins and stuff like that. You can get rubber band guides that you can put on the pins that you already have. See how that went over my dough and didn't stop? That means that's all rolled out and ready to be cut, okay? It means it's at its point. I need 3 baseballs. So I always put my cutter in my flour first, because that's what's going to allow it to release easily from your cutter. Okay, that's all I need of baseballs. I need 3 footballs. And that's all I need of that. So, I take this pan, just like this, and I put it in the freezer. And as I'm cutting my next pan, then I will put that in the freezer as well, but this should be set and ready about 5 to 10 minutes is what I keep it in there. When you can pick it up and you feel that it's frozen, it does not take long. And you feel, because you're cutting from a frozen state, it's still a little frozen in there. It doesn't take long to harden back up. I go straight from my freezer to my oven with a frozen dough. And I bake, depending on the size. This size, I would probably start out at 7 minutes. The way that you know if your cookie is done or not is that if you check on your cookie and it still looks a little wet on top, and not a little bit more dry, a little wet on top, you can still kind of tell. Go about 30 to 45 seconds more. And then, because this I will start out at 7, but I probably should go like 7.5 or so, but I don't want to overdo it. So when I look at it, I probably would have to go 30 more seconds or so. And on the larger cookies, I always start them out at 8. Sometimes if they're pretty big, then I will do 9. But so from 7 to 9 minutes for the 3.5 to 4 inches of the cookies, okay? For this cookie dough, for this recipe. And set your timer. And what I do, so let me just show you really quickly. Whenever you take your, say we just took this out of the oven, okay? I would purchase one of these types of spatulas. The metal spatula that doesn't have any cutouts in the center, that it's flat. This is a tool that I picked up explicitly for this step. So say we just remove this and it's hot. It's hot, it's done, it's hot, but your cookie dough may bubble up in the center. So as it's hot, what I do, and I barely touch it, is I just take this and I just smooth down on the top. This is going to create that flat surface on the top of your cookie for decorating. It makes decorating a whole lot more easier. But I just take it and I don't press down hard. You don't want to smush your cookie. You don't want to take the thickness of your cookie away. I just barely touch it and smooth those bubbles down, okay? And if you're not careful, your cookie could get cut into, because this is going to be super, super soft when it first comes out of the oven, and you can cut into your cookie with the edges. So you want to make sure you do it really flat and barely pressing down and just smooth those bubbles out. And you'll want to go over them a couple of times as they're cooling. Now, because this cookie dough is a soft cookie dough, you want to go ahead and leave it on your pan. Once you remove it from the oven, leave it on your pan and for about at least 5 to 10 minutes. And then you can use that spatula to move it over to your baking rack to finish cooling. Or if you know what you're doing, you can lightly pick them up. This soft cookie dough, just let me warn you, that if you pick up on one side and it's not cool enough yet, you will bend it to where it cracks in the middle. So just be careful. Let it sit on the pan to cool for about 5 to 10 minutes before you transfer it over to the baking rack. I would suggest, until you get used to fooling with this cookie dough, if you're using my recipe, to use a spatula to remove it from the pan to the baking rack, okay? I think that's about it. That's about all of the tips that I have. I will be coming back either today or maybe even possibly Thursday to talk icing. We're gonna get the icing done this week as well. I have a cookie class on Saturday and I have to do a lot of icing for it. So I might just use that to do videos, I'm not sure. But these orders, I do have to get busy and get them out for tomorrow morning. So y'all have a blessed day, and just remember that I'm always here to answer any questions that you have. You can private message me, or just look me up on Facebook and go through Donna Allen Barbier if you want, or you can message me at Belle's Cookie Jar, or you can comment on any of the posts in the Belle's Cookie Connection, and I will get your questions answered. Y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see you soon.